So, folks, we are joined by Shawn Fry in the virtual studio today, and he's a global business strategist, a leadership coach, and author of the international bestseller Sustained Business Growth. With over 25 years of experience optimizing business operations across 60 plus facilities in 17 countries, he held leadership roles in large organizations that serve industry giants like General Electric, Boeing, Toyota, and the US military in order to achieve radical growth without compromising the well being and efficiency. But before we get started, Shan, here's a basic question. Why should our audience tune into this episode and spend 25 to 30 minutes of their valuable time? What's in it for them?
Yeah, great question. Right. So I was working 70 to 80 hours a week, turning around flawed business models, and just really realizing that, hey, look, I am way out of balance, right? So with family and just a balanced life. So I think it's just really trying to figure out for business leaders, really trying to drive radical change. How do we succeed? How do we excel professionally without sacrificing ourselves as well as our family and other team members?
Awesome. So our audiences are going to learn a lot of great things. So folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording, and we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak, and here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future, and we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host Navin Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. And today, folks, we are going to discuss the perfect day routine.
Hello, I'm Steve Ahern, one of the judges of the Asia Podcast Awards. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that you're listening to an award-winning podcast. This podcast won its category in the 2024 Podcast Awards, so you know you're listening to quality. Enjoy your listening experience, and congratulations to the team who created this award-winning podcast for you.
And how to lead without burning out. But before we get started, as always, let us tickle our guest's brain. So, Shawn, get ready for a rapid fire round of random words. I'm going to mention a few words that come to my mind. Request you to respond to them without thinking much. If you're ready, let's get started.
Okay, excellent.
All right. My first word to you is curiosity.
Yeah, so that's fuel for innovation, right? So fuel for innovation and disruption.
Invention.
Invention is bold experimentation, right? So really trying to take risks, calculated risks, while experimenting and learning.
Future.
That's really today's decisions really shape tomorrow's reality, right? So what we decide today will determine the future and tomorrow's reality.
Universe.
Yeah, so that just means a vast amount of opportunities and ideas to go find and explore.
Leadership.
Leadership to me is influence. No more, no less.
Success.
Success is really all about impact and contribution. What are we doing that's bigger than ourselves?
Life.
Life is an opportunity to learn every day, to grow every day, and to really figure out how we can make the biggest impact, right? So it's all about testing and learning and growing and making that bigger impact.
Aliens.
I think we're foreigners. All of us are foreigners outside of our comfort zone, right? So anytime we're stepping outside our comfort zone, we're learning, we're completely out of the ordinary. And so that's where we grow the most.
Productivity.
To me, that's doing the right things efficiently, right? So I'm a big believer in the 80-20, the 20-80, or the Pareto principle. And so doing the right things very efficient.
Okay, and here comes the last one, creativity.
To me, that's the bridge between what we can imagine and what we actually execute and do. So, Peter Drucker once said this, right? So he talked about like strategy, so culture eats strategy for breakfast every day, right? So to me, that's really what it kind of spawns is, hey, how do we take the ideas, our imagination, and how do we go execute?
Superb. I loved all your responses and thank you for participating in the first rapid fire round. So Shawn, there is one more rapid fire round waiting for you toward the end of the episode. So stay tuned. And first of all, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series. Thank you so much for being part of our journey. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm very grateful, thankful to be on your podcast and to hopefully inspire and empower some of your viewers. So really excited to be a part of this. So thank you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. And we'll get started with your guiding voice. Talk to us about who is your guiding voice.
Yeah, so my guiding voice is truly the Spirit of God. I believe the Spirit of God is my guiding voice, and it's based on my faith, right? So based on my faith and my integrity and my values, right? So that really helps me understand decisions that I make as well as actions that I take every day.
All right. And also talk to us about your success mantra, as in top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
So that's good. That's good. So to me, it's radical focus, right? So there's so many great ideas. There's so many things that we can do. And I think it's really coming down to purpose, right? So understanding our purpose, understanding where we add the most value, what's our strengths, and radical focus in those areas. To me, that's been a big part of my success, I believe. The other one is just relentlessly learning and growing, right? So just being curious every day. What am I learning every day? What skill am I developing every day? And every year, just new things that I'm really kind of molding and shaping and overcoming adversity, right? So if you think about the ever changing market conditions, our cultures, our teams, wherever that might be. I think it's just how do we overcome adversity in various ways and creatively do that. The last one's really collaborating. I think that's really key for me is just really working with teams, working with people, in capturing those ideas and how do we leverage the best of the holistic perspective versus just my idea or somebody. I think it's just really leveraging the team strengths.
So leveraging team strengths and then empowering others. And one other thing that actually resonates with me is the continuous learning aspect, which is more than required in today's fast evolving world. Amazing. And with that, take us back in time to the moment where your son asked you, where do you live, right? So how did that single question reshape your entire approach to life and also leadership?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a little bit of context, a little bit of background. I was in the midst of turning around a flawed business model, working 70, 80 hours a week, really just doing the best that I could to just really turn around on-time delivery, defects to the customer, you name it, right? So really the profitability of the company. And then my youngest son came to me one day and he said, "Dad, where do you live?" And that was just like a knife to the heart, right? So that was really a gut punch, and it was really a point in time, a very pivotal point in time where I figured out, look, I've got to be more intentional with my time. I've got to be very clear on my purpose. Otherwise, I sacrifice my health, I sacrifice my family, I sacrifice my team and community, right? So how do I live a better balanced life to where I'm the most productive in my best self, to be the best leader that I can be? So that was really a key thing for me, was really just try to figure out a better way. And that's really what led me to write the book, Sustained Business Growth, is how to lead radical change without sacrificing those that matter most.
That is very important, especially to the youngsters who are working on their startups. And it has become a fad to work 18 to 20 hours a day, right, without giving enough rest to the body. And I'm sure it is going to help people be productive and not burn out. So I'm looking forward to the copy of your book. And Shan, one common thing, right, even when we discussed the first time when we met, right, I told I'm also a GE alumni. I worked for GE between 2006 to 2017. Yeah, and you have worked with other large corporations other than GE, Boeing, and also the US military. So, what was the most counterintuitive lesson you have learned from these environments?
Yeah. So, and again, I've worked for large corporations that are suppliers to those industry giants that have really helped mold and shape my understanding and my experiences in transforming organizations. I think the biggest and the most single lesson that I've learned is the best leaders redefine how success is achieved, right? So there's different styles, there's different ways, there's different tools, different systems, different methods, and some is just firefighting, but they are really good at understanding, how to connect the total team to single objectives, so thinking about here's our common objectives. here's how we're going to work. Here's our values. Here's our principles. And this is what it looks like every day. So they actually live that out on a daily basis, and they can demonstrate that, show that, and actually teach and coach that. They really become the coaches of that every day. This is the way we work. So that's really some of the biggest lessons that I've learned and some of the most successful turnarounds.
Also, Shawn, how did you develop your 7 powerful principles and perfect day routine? And how have they transformed your own life and the lives of those you coach?
Yeah. So I reflected back on my 26, 27 years of experience in different industries, right? So was in, like we talked about, was in aerospace, was in automotive, was in power generation, as well as defense industry. And there's some common principles, right? So I interviewed 15 high impact leaders that I've seen that really drove the most constructive change that was sustainable. I said, there's got to be some common principles here that work. And so I captured those and really reflected back on my experiences as well. And really that constancy of purpose, right? So just really understand, which Deming, mentioned many, many decades ago, back in the 70s, right? Was that constancy of purpose, clarity of communication, right? So just being very clear and purposeful in what my message is and who am I talking to, as well as focus and alignment. Those are just 3 of the principles, but there are many others that I talk about and show the experiences and lessons learned from some of those 15 high impact leaders. So that really kind of molded and shaped, and it's fun to just test those out, in different scenarios. Doesn't necessarily have to be one industry, right? They apply to all industries and or functions, right? So it's not necessarily just manufacturing or supply chain. It can definitely work in finance. It can definitely work in business development, engineering, as well as small business. I actually worked on those same type of principles on small businesses and entrepreneurs, right? So helping entrepreneurs win. So that was even like used car lots as well as salons and stuff like that. So it's been pretty cool to just see how those principles truly live out and lead to success, no matter how they measure that, how they state that. So,
And also, if you look at your work experience, I think you have achieved like over $100 million in impact using operational excellence systems, principles, and tools. But now today we are talking about leveraging AI, right, to drive top line growth and also bottom line savings. So how can leaders incorporate artificial intelligence to scale effectively without replacing the human element? Because if human element is lost, everything will be robotic. Like we will not see life in the systems at all.
So I think it really is discerning in your business, in your situation. To me, I'm always in pursuit of how do I be my most productive self, right? So there's things that I add the most value to, right? The things that I do the best, my strengths. And there's other things that, hey, look, these are just routine things. So that's where I really try to leverage AI, right? So, there's some things that, tasks, whether it's emails, whether it's follow up, whether it's, a variety of different ways, responses that take just simple responses, to whether it's customers, whether it's other people, but there's some other complex things that we just simply can't replace. It's the face to face, just like what we're doing right now. It's hard to replace that face to face, that eye to eye contact, the shaking of hands. AI just cannot replace that, right? And so I think it's just discerning and understanding how do we leverage the best of both, right? So combining that hybrid, I call it hybrid AI, right? So really helping us be the most productive self while still really making that personal connection. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Would you also share any example of a small business or something?
Yeah. So a small business example. So actually, I had created a chatbot for a used car lot, right? So, in the midst of this was outside of COVID, right? So COVID, a couple of years ago was just really, small businesses were floundering and struggling. And hey, let's face it, today's environment, there's going to be a lot of businesses struggling to figure out how to create better business models to operate in this uncertain markets. But anyway, I created a chat bot working with this used car owner and just trying to figure out how do we need to focus on his niche, right? So certain vehicles were just simply not selling and we're not going to sell in that environment. And so just figuring out what that niche was for him. and how he had to, unfortunately, he had to let go of some of his staff, or they pursued other interests because of the market situation. And so was really trying to help him without adding too much cost to his business, how to respond and go out there and find the right customers that would buy that type of vehicle, right? So that's really how it leveraged, AI, the algorithms, thinking about Meta and Google, but also a chatbot that would respond back to them and then get them on a call with him. So you still had that hybrid AI, so it was doing a lot of that legwork, but you still got on a call with him at the end of the right people that would buy his products. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. And also, Sean, how do you see this artificial intelligence transforming leadership, especially in areas like emotional intelligence and also high impact influence techniques?
Yeah, I'm excited about this because, again, I don't think AI is going to replace the human, but I think it can definitely help us, give us insights into where we can be the most productive and most effective and efficient at what we do. So, human Synergistics International. I really love a lot of their work. They've been doing a lot for over 60 plus years. They have a circumplex is what they call, and it's really looking at constructive cultures as well as, defensive or passive, or, so it's really looking at some of that culture, shapers, if you will, the enablers. They've taken a lot of that data, from many of the leadership assessments, and really tried to leverage AI to say, well, here's the variables, here's the behaviors that really drive the most constructive cultures, right? So I think it's that prescriptive and predictive way to look at it. I know you've got that, Six Sigma background. You think about master black belt. So I'm always thinking about what's those critical X's that are going to impact that output that we're trying to achieve, right?
All right. And also moving forward, what will be your practical advice to leaders who are struggling to find a balance between being a high impact leader and a present family member? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what in my book, The Sustained Business Growth, I talk about a seven M's, right? So I'll talk about seven M's to be, the maximum impact. So I think it's really diving into some of those seven M's and thinking about, okay, well, is my mindset, what's my mindset right now? Is my mind, established on thinking about how do I, overcome that balance or overcome adversity? Understanding the mentors, so maybe there's some mentors out there that have definitely overcome that, whatever behaviors, whatever outcome you're trying to achieve. I think it's really understanding those mentors and, getting involved with them or engaging with them. I think it's, so mutual relationships, right? So what's the right network that can equip and help you do that, but also mastery, right? So where's their strengths? There's some other seven M's that, other M's that I talk about in the book, but I think it's coming down to that perfect day routine, so really establishing for yourself, well, here's what my perfect day looks like, and here's what that perfect balance looks like. And how do I intentionally lead in those areas of that perfect day? So talk a lot about that in the book. I can definitely describe that more, but that's really what I would recommend, is really have a great vision for yourself of what's my perfect day look like. How do I leverage those seven M's to reach the maximum impact and be the most successful?
This sounds interesting and also exciting at the same time. And to move forward, you have worked with many exceptional leaders, right? So what are the key habits and systems that separate some exceptional leaders from rest of them?
Yeah. So I think some of the major ones I really was thinking about was they're great at making decisions, right? So they're great at understanding here's the right amount of data to make the best decision and move forward, right? Because I think that's something that many leaders get stuck, and it just depends on the type of leader, but many people get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase, right? So, but great leaders really understand here's the right amount of information I need and let's go. So it's that decision philosophy or velocity, if you think about it like that. They're great at understanding and discerning, what's the right things to do at the right time to be the most successful. And so I think it's that prioritization and deep work that's going to have the biggest impact. right? So they're really thinking about that return on time, return on investment, right? So they've just become masters at that, and that's just what they do almost unconsciously. They're great at self reflection, right? So I think they really think about what's working. You know, they take time every day, and actually, Harvard Business Review had a great article about this. So they basically said those that take it 15 minutes every day are 25% more productive, right? So I think it's just taking that 15 minutes of reflection, understanding what's working, what's not, what adjustments do I need to make. So that's just a couple of the things I talk about. More of the critical leadership behaviors in the book, but that's just a couple of them that I think would help anybody.
Amazing. I think you have done a lot of research, and I'm sure your book offers a valuable set of insights. And Shan, this has been amazing conversation, and it's time for us to add some more excitement and some more spice to the episode, which means time for us to do the second rapid fire round. So shall we do it?
Let's go. Let's go.
All right, here comes my first bullet. If you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
I think it would win the hearts and minds, and you win the day.
So incidentally, I was reading something similar today, and I'm trying to recall, like if you take care of your thing in terms of chemistry part of it, and physics will be taken care by itself, right? So something I found it interesting, and with that, let me move to my next one. Can you describe yourself in just one word?
Yeah, what one word is tough, but I would just say game changer. I'm a game changer.
That's a good one. And a book that changed your perspective on leadership.
Yeah, there's that was hard too, but there's been many books that really transformed me and just really helped mold and shape. But I think Ray Dalio wrote a book called Principles. And so I was really intrigued with that book simply because he took a lot of the continuous improvement, operational excellence principles and systems, and he applied it to the financial world, thinking about investments and hedge funds, right? And so he was just all about that plan, do, check, act, right? So I'm just constantly learning, testing, and seeing and just improving the algorithm. So I love that book. It's Principles by Ray Dalio.
Yeah, that will be in my wish list. Right, that I'll add it to my reading list now, and I'm sure it's going to add a lot of value. And with that, let's move to the next one. What is the worst advice that you have ever received?
Yeah, I think the worst advice is that you can outsource culture change. Right. So I think in many different organizations, they try to hire consultants and other people to come in and just completely change their culture. And I'm a believer that you absolutely have to do both. You have to actually build and buy, right? So you just because of the speed, you do need that extra help, but you got to build talent. That's how you got to build leaders. That's how you truly change cultures is the leaders, right? So I think that's really key there.
And then if you could eliminate one business myth forever, what would it be?
So I think something that I saw previous generations do is if you work hard, right? If you do hard work every day, you'll be successful. Well, that's not true, right? That's just simply not true. It's all about working smarter, not harder, right? So it's just really figuring out what's the right things, how do I get the right things done, follow those success principles, and then you will be successful, right? So,
and what's one daily habit that keeps you grounded?
Yeah. So every morning, as part of my perfect day routine, right? It really is meditation, right? So I've got to make sure my mindset is right, right? So I think as long as my mindset is right, I do pray, meditate, that kind of thing to help my mindset be in the right place. That's how I become successful every day.
All right. And here comes the last one for the second rapid fire. What is one thing every leader should start doing today?
Yeah. So we're given 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? So it's all about let's use these ears more, right? So let's listen more.
I love it. And I loved all your responses to the second rapid fire. Let's flip back to the mainstream. So, Shan, what is the most misunderstood aspect of business growth that you wish more leaders were aware of?
Yeah. So I think in just my experience in the different industries, there's different models, right? So I think it's understanding, what is the model that's set up what's the measures of success, what drives those measures of success for each business. It's not always the same for different business types and or industries. I've definitely found that out recently, right? So it's understanding the underlying factors of a flawed business model and metrics. Metrics drive behaviors, right? Metrics drive, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So I think it's just really understanding the business model and understanding the metrics. Is it driving the principles and behaviors that we want? Or is it flawed, and where do we need to make some adjustments and corrections?
Amazing. And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and it was lovely talking to you. A lot of insights which can be applied on day-to-day basis, and somebody can become really productive and companies can go to the next level. So how is your experience being hosted on TGV?
Hey, this has been great. Definitely love the great questions. Learned a lot, just kind of thinking about some of the questions that you're asking. And so definitely appreciate the opportunity. It's been a great experience. Look forward to seeing and learning some more from your future episodes. So very good.
Thank you so much, and pleasure to host you, and looking forward to talking to you again in future as well. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
So friends, that was our episode with Shawn Fry. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. In case if you haven't already subscribed to our podcast, please subscribe from wherever you have tuned in from. And also request you to leave a rating and review so that it reaches more and more people. And also if you have enjoyed the conversation, please consider sharing with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who would also like TGV. So spread the knowledge and also help others grow just like you. Now it's time for us to cruise into the trivia segment. So we wanted to present you fascinating trivia about underrated habits. You know, the power of small habits cannot be discounted. The journaling for just 5 minutes a day has been proven to boost productivity, enhance mood, and also improve decision making. Most of the successful leaders that we have hosted on the show have mentioned about journaling in the past as well. And though it is simple, regular journaling helps declutter the mind, making it easier to focus on priorities. And studies show that writing down tasks and thoughts can increase productivity by up to 20 to 25%. Second fact is about the underestimated value of napping. Contrary to the hustle culture, a 20-minute power nap can drastically improve alertness and also motor performance. And research from NASA found that a nap for just 26 minutes can enhance performance by 34% and alertness by 54%. And the next is about the habit of flossing. Flossing just doesn't protect oral health, and studies indicate it may reduce the risk of heart disease. Poor oral hygiene has been linked to increased inflammation, which contributes to cardiovascular problems. And next is about mindful breathing. Simple breathing exercises like 4-7-8 technique, which is nothing but inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it for 7 seconds, and exhaling for 8 seconds, can reduce stress and also lower the heart rate. And practicing this daily improves focus, emotional regulation, and even helps with insomnia. So that's it from my side from the trivia perspective. Likewise, if you are aware of any small habits which can create that drastic improvement in our lives, do let me know. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, you can comment there. Or if you found this episode on audio platforms or social media platforms, you can comment there as well. So folks, thank you once again for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the best is yet to come. So goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye-bye.